part 2. So I woke up in his bed the next day. I understood something had happened. I'm trying not to be graphic, right? And back then, I really struggled to really name that for what it was. Because to some degree, I understood that he was attracted to me, right? We met on a dating app, right? Obviously, the reason I got his attention was because he was attracted to me. I knew this, right? I, as a kid, as a 15-year-old, knew this, right? But what I didn't really know is what sex really was for me. I understood sex as like an innuendo, like this sort of thing that you talk about, this sort of thing that men wanted, right? This sort of like shake of your shoulders, this sort of giggle, right? But I didn't really understand what it was and what it was supposed to mean for me. And he effectively took that away from me. That decision of my own to process that as something for myself. Now, I'm telling you a lot of this as a person who's processed it. At the time that this happened to me, what ended up happening is I was in a position where I wasn't prepared to process it. And I was also in a position where, of the people in my life, this dude who was raping me, this dude who was abusing me, was more preferable than being at home. That's just the situation I was in. I might have known that he wanted to have sex with me, but I didn't really understand how what he did to me would actually impact me. And the way that it impacted me is because I was struggling to process that experience. My response to rape was to become hypersexual. So I had a lot of very high risk, very scary, self-harm laced experiences with men, all because I wanted to feel like I was in control of the sex that I had. During that time, between 15 and 18, I had sex with a lot of men, and I was shocked. I remember being so surprised by how few men cared. So few men cared that I was underage. It was almost like I could count on them not caring. And this is, mind you, I'm 33, right? This is the 2000s, right? Like, a lot about the internet was not what it is today. It's even scarier now. There's even easier ways for adults to access children now. This is why I talk about this, because this is such a important thing to talk about as we have conversations about grooming that are essentially going to alienate children even further and make them more vulnerable targets. Because what groomers look for is the unattended child who is desperate for adult approval. That is what they're seeking. They are seeking out a young child who is desperate for adult approval, to the point where when they do start assaulting them, they are still the best person in their life. Such a huge part of this is alienating them from your family, right? Like, I spent almost all of my weekends in Los Angeles in that studio. My parents did not know what was going on. My friends did not know what was going on. I didn't really tell anyone that it had happened to me until years after. And in the between times, I had so many unhealthy, maladjusted relationships with men. I had so many maladjusted sexual experiences where, frankly, I was being abused over and over again. I had a really shitty understanding of what I should accept from men, right? Rape changed me. And even if I was in a situation where I was not drugged and I was conscious and wanting it and active and things like that, it would still not have been something that I was prepared for. And I understand what he's trying to say in this video, because he knows that there are teenagers and young people who feel like they understand what's going on. And I don't want to sound condescending, because I get it, right? Like, when I was in that position, and if you ever came to me and said to me, Catherine, you should not be doing this. This is not okay. This is actually quite dangerous. I would not have heard you. I would have fought with you over it. I would have literally been unwilling to have the conversation. Seriously. Because when I was in the height of my hypersexuality, I didn't want to feel like anyone was in control of my sexuality other than myself. Now, I might have been in several situations where I felt empowered, right? So there were times where I needed a place to stay or I needed some food or something, right? Because I ran away a lot in LA when I was younger, and certain times I would not be able to get home. So I would try to find places to stay. And there were times where I would have to make myself sexually available to a man in order to get that. And I remember feeling like at the time I was the one in power. But here's the thing. This guy seems young, right? I think he quite literally probably just turned 18 not that long ago. And the reason I feel like this, and I know that younger people don't hear this at all. Okay, I have so much more to say about this, so I'm just going to make a part 3.